dog has said hello before any of us have even spoken. So hello everybody, I'm Mandy and
Sharon.
Yes, carry on. Yeah, this is Sharon. Yes,
Khaled.
That's Dean, he's on mute. We've got Kevin here and Pavlina.
Hiya.
Hello, hi, thanks for coming along. So they are three of our Patreon members and we're the Pomegranate Grove, and every week we do a podcast, and today's is all about astrology and the different uses of astrology, because you can use astrology in all different ways for all different things. So who would like to start?
Well, looking at Khaled.
I'm looking at
Yeah, I mean, it's something I think about often because it's sort of like, okay, so this is super nerdy, but this is the first word that's coming to mind. And yeah, I think I learned this word when I was a graduate student studying comparative literature. So basically, you can have a word that is in itself, it has so many different meanings, or that it's sort of used in a way, like in a particular phrasing that makes it very suggestive, so that it could have any number of meanings. So that's overdetermined. So when a word is like that, it's like overdetermined. And as I've been studying astrology, I've been doing that for a while, by myself and then as part of a structured program. I've been realizing more and more that the key symbols in any chart you look at, like especially the planets, but also things like the nodes, like and the signs and the houses, they all operate on so many different levels, right? At the same time, right? So, for example, Saturn could stand for authority in general, the authority of the government or the police, or the authority of patriarchy, or it could stand for the authoritative experience of the father figure, just like received on an individual personal level. It's the same thing with the houses. They could be any number of things, right? Um, so so basically, when you sit to analyze a natal chart, I think you have to keep that in mind, that there are many ways to analyze a natal chart, and depending on what you want to emphasize, um, you will kind of focus on one type of symbolism, give it more emphasis than another, right? Now, another thing I want to say is that historically there have been also several branches of astrology, like for centuries. So then there's natal astrology, which is just as like it just analyzes the birth chart of a particular person. Then there's mundane astrology, which looks at, let's say, the prospects of a country by drawing up a chart, a birth chart for when it was arguably founded. Then there's electional astrology, which teaches you how to choose the best time for doing a particular event, and that requires understanding which planets lend their energies toward particular events, toward particular activities, and which don't. And there's horary astrology, which can help you sort of basically get the question answered at the time you pose it to the astrologer who's doing the horary astrology for you. And then there's going to be like a planetary significator for you, and then another one for the person that you're asking about or the object. It goes on and on. And there's medical astrology, and there's magical astrology also, right? Which is not an insignificant branch, not at all. So yeah, so it's like just historically, astrology has been operating on so many different levels and fulfilling so many different purposes. And I feel like it sort of resonates with the way that ideally tarot cards work in a reading, right? So I feel like if you read the card when you're doing like if you cast out cards in a spread, and you're for a client, and you're picking up what the message is, what each card is sending you, not just on a mental level, but also intuitively, you will find that you're getting meanings at multiple levels. And by putting these meanings together, you're sort of answering the question in a more holistic and helpful way. Yeah. So I think I've babbled on long enough. Whoever wants to take it from here.
I know, like there are so many different branches of astrology that
Right.
in order to specialize in each branch, like holistic or career or natal or any of those, you would have to live about 327 years, maybe more.
Right. Right. Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes.
so there are like special branches. And I know my favorite so far has been natal astrology because it not only analyzes that chart, but really helps people understand when they're unhappy, why they're unhappy, what they need in their lives to make them happy. And it's not like you see a lot of the so-called modern astrologers right now just using astrology as an excuse for their actions.
Mm,
But instead of seeing it as an excuse for your actions, it's an awareness of
right.
that, what you perceive as a flaw. And there are other factors in your chart that can help you relate that better. You don't ever want to change who you are because then you're just going to be unhappy. But if you
Hmm.
can use the factors in your chart to act out your energy in a more healthy way to yourself and others. I
Yes.
just think that's a phenomenal tool to have.
Hmm. Yeah. And like this point is just so great to bring up because it just leads us to a very let's say predominant, like um it's a very big sort of schism, let's say, or a friction, let's say a source of friction between medieval and ancient ways of practicing astrology and more modern ones. Um, so in more modern ways of practicing astrology, and I'm not talking about pop astrology that tells you quote unquote what you are based on what your sun or moon rising sign is, but like actually the type of astrology you get in counseling or in schools of astrology like evolutionary astrology, right? So the emphasis there is on understanding how the planets and their sign and house placements and their aspects, all of them kind of they express potentials that you have, um, either as part of your personality or as kind of challenges that you're likely to meet but internalize in a particular way, right? And that so basically the message coming from most kind of schools of modern astrology is that you should grow aware of what these planets mean as different expressions of your psychology, of your, the potential directions that your will can take, and then grow more and more aware of how you can kind of steer hold the helm of your own ship and steer it, you know? Um, and so basically, and for this reason, many modern astrologers don't like using terms like um, detriment, fall, domicile, exaltation, which are the terms that the ancients would use and the Middle Age astrologers would use to kind of dis- mark a planet as functioning well or not functioning not well, being able to bestow good things on someone's life or not being able to, or rather actually inclined to inflict, to cause afflictions, um yeah, it's a big topic in astrology, and I think in general um it's more helpful to like you said, Sharon, to kind of look at a birth chart as a kind of map of potentials, right? Like a collection of pointers for evolution and change. Because in the end, if you come and say like, okay, whatever, your moon is in Capricorn, you're you just have to accept that you're never gonna be properly able to express or even understand your feelings and be comfortable with them. How useful is that
Right.
to anyone,
Right. Or
Like,
not, like you said, not looking at the detriments and the falls and those perceived flaws or challenges where
mm,
we sugarcoat it. Oh, everything's wonderful. We are complex human being. Every
right.
single person on this earth is a complex entity.
Hmm.
So in order to understand those complexities, you got to be able to see those challenges and the way that chart works from planet to planet and how those planets communicate in your chart.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And to
Hmm.
tell somebody, oh, just deal with it because you're not going to be able, like you just said, that doesn't help it. That makes it an excuse. And you
Hmm.
never want to just have an excuse. They're not challenges to be excuses. They're challenges that we can overcome. And once we know we're there and what else is there in our chart, we can overcome them. It might
Right.
take a lifetime, but we have that ability.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
quite like the just the philosophy of it, to be honest. Like,
Mm.
even if like when I'm talking to my son, he's not interested in astrology at all. If I say, the moon's in Capricorn and it's in the third house, it's like, oh, shut up, mother. Like, I'm not interested in this. But if I tell him what that means without saying I'm talking astrologically, I just say, well, like, sometimes it's just your instinct about something. It's just not really very comfortable. And I'm kind of saying, oh, the moon is in Capricorn, but without actually saying those words. And it's like, it's like you're not sort of trusting what your instincts are saying, because you have to be sort of sensible and logical all the time. He'll go, yeah, that's right, that's right. And it's like he actually is believing astrology without realizing I'm talking astrology in a language that he understands,
That
and it
Hmm.
is spot on. And so I'm finding just the philosophy of it is really, really useful. And I kind of like feel that because we can do transits, and that's the other thing, because things are moving all the time. I mean, some things in the sky are moving so slowly you don't even notice it, but other things like the moon are kind of like, changing every couple of days. And even within a sign, at some degree in the sign, the moon is going to connect with certain individuals. Do you know what I mean? At a certain time of day, on a certain day. And I feel that I can say to my clients or my friends or whatever, let me just quickly check something. And it's like, I would leave this if I was you today. I wouldn't actually bother to try and do this today because you're fighting an uphill battle today. But do you know something? By tomorrow afternoon, you'll be able to approach this so much easier. And I just feel it's so helpful in a practical sense. Like certain things you can say, well, things are going to be difficult for you over the next few weeks, whatever. But then, honestly, you will start to feel it pass. And I think when people are warned about that, they put less pressure on themselves. It helps. It,
yes.
I do honestly think it is a form of therapy, and a form of, well, you wouldn't be able to do that at the moment. It doesn't mean you'll never be able to do that. And there might be some things I don't think you should bother even trying that. Do you know what I mean? That's not for you. But look, there's a lot of things that are, though. I think we can be so helpful just with astrology, just what we get from astrology, even without, or before, I should say, we put the tarot into it as well.
Hmm.
That's a really good point, and I would like to revisit what you said about, how you approach it with Roman, your son.
Yes,
Um, a lot of astrologers just use the terminology that clients aren't going to understand. So I
exactly.
think a huge part, and you just explained it so beautifully, about being astrologers is having the ability to break it down, not dumb it down, but speak your client's language. You
Yeah.
know, oh, you've got detriment, this planet's in detriment. They don't know what that means.
No.
So a lot of astrologers just use the astrology where the client might get a gist, but don't really walk away understanding the way you would explain it. Like, don't worry about this right now. You know, you got too much going on.
Yeah.
Speaking it in a really common language.
Yeah. I mean, the more I'm learning about astrology, the more hungry I get to sort of learn more and master more of it, because it really is account, like you said, Sharon, we're complex. It really does account for all the different types of energies, which energies go well together, which energies clash, which energies just miss the point of each other. I mean, that's all very, very relevant. And what we're kind of like working on quite a bit at the moment is kind of like how certain things make bad energies less bad and good energies even better, and how, you know, it's all, everything's on spectrums, everything's on spectrums. And I find that so exciting.
Because you really don't know how it's going to plan out. Good, bad, middle, and what factors will affect how it plays out. It's being able to see all of that is so exciting.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things to do with astrology is if there's somebody who just grates me the wrong way or I can't see eye to eye with, I really like to look at their chart so that I can tolerate better, that I can understand them, see why. You know, I don't have to fix them, but if I can understand them better, I won't be so single-minded and arc.
That's a very good point. Because as a children's entertainer, and Dean will confirm this, but you know, Dean was a children's entertainer for a long time, and so was I. And when we turn up to do a kids' party, not always does the mother or the teacher or whatever say to you, oh, such and such a child, you know, has learning difficulties or this, or, you know, sometimes we have to kind of work it out for ourselves if there's a child that actually has an issue or a problem, you know. I mean, sometimes it's obvious. Other times you just think, why is this child disrupting the party? Why is this child such an attention seeker? You know, and it really kind of gets on your nerves. Whereas if you knew from the beginning, oh, this child actually has a problem, you would just be much more sympathetic about it than be inside feeling angry towards them. You know, it's better to know. And astrology can tell you a lot of those things, you know, and it just makes you more tolerant of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love that about it. It makes me feel like I have the ability also to be a better person than I am, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I know for me, I've got all this fixed energy going on in my chart. And I'm very kind of like conscious of it now within myself. You know, it's like, oh, here I go again, kind of, you know, me who won't budge, me who is so sort of stubborn, me who just sticks with things, right, you know, for way too long, all of that sort of thing. It makes you sort of realize that about yourself, and it makes you sort of like, I don't know, just think of your options a little bit differently. It's like, I don't have to, although I have fixed energy, it doesn't mean I have to be fixed all the time. I have got other energies there that I can think, no, I'm actually going to choose to be my mutable energy on this one. I'm going to call upon my Gemini moon, you know, to get me out of this one, kind of thing, and make me see all my options.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think again, just like helping, like getting to a point where you can understand the planets as, you know, archetypes that mean things, again, on a spectrum, but also the signs and also the houses, so that then your thinking can open up so much more broadly about, let's say, I don't want to say what you are, but what you might be, let's say, what type of person you might be, and in what ways is it actually okay? In what ways is it reasonable for you to kind of expect that you can change, and in what ways is it not so reasonable
Yeah.
uh, for you to expect that you can change, right? Because in the end, I feel like it's like every birth chart is nothing is set in stone, of course, but a birth chart is basically um, it's sort of like a mapping, uh, a mapping of possibilities with certain boundaries around each possibility that can shift. They're not like frozen boundaries, you know? Like you can sort of stretch them this way and that way and that, you know?
Full
But you just
Well,
have
spectrum.
to,
well,
mm,
the thing is, though, that does happen because of the
yeah,
progression. You
right,
know, like certain signs, you'll be born with a certain sign in a certain planet in a certain sign, and it in depending on which planet and where it is, like which degree that planet may be in that sign for your entire life, right? It may be,
right,
but there's other planets that after a certain amount of time will actually move to another sign. You know,
right.
it will progress. So it's quite complex. You know,
Agree.
you
Yeah,
will kind of like develop in some ways and not in others. It's fascinating.
And I
right.
I
Yeah.
think of the charts, Khalid, as like blueprints on
Mm.
how we can meet our fullest potential. And most of us never see these blueprints. And how long of my life did I go through just day to day surviving? And how many
Mm-hmm.
people have to do that where I'm not meeting my potential? So of course I was unhappy. Or how
Mm-hmm.
many of us adhere to what others believe we should be and try to meet that image of ourselves, where if we knew our blueprints, if we knew our possibilities of how we could be happiest, we could learn, and I've seen charts where, these people just surviving day to day, there's no possible way that they could just stop doing everything and become their best selves. It's
Right.
not possible all
Right.
the time. So what
Yeah.
you need
Mm,
to do there is fish out ways where they can bring that out without it being a career or without it being an utter life change, where they
mm,
can meet those beautiful possibilities and that happiness without having to do something else,
right.
you know?
Right. Yeah, and I feel like astrology, it sort of it teaches you that, especially when you're looking at the movements of the slower planets from Jupiter farther out, um, it teaches you that you're sort of, with time, you're forced to, if not change, you're forced to kind of reckon with uh, the ways that you might have been not answering the knock on your door, the knock on the knock on your door for change, the call to change, right? Um, and especially I think with Saturn transits, which occur a couple of times during the average person's lifespan, right? Um, you're sort of forced to recognize um, to what extent you've risen to the challenges that you found within yourself or challenges you face outside of yourself, but you've always you've tended to disavow, to not own your own responsibility for dealing with them and just treat them as completely external obstacles, right? Um, you do get pushed by, particularly like the slower planets, to change and to grow. And then it depends on you, like whether you believe in yourself enough to kind of go through those trials and and kind of surrender that I'm a victim mentality, everything is happening to me, and instead develop the mentality that, hey, at this moment I'm responsible for dealing with what's happening to me in the most mature way. And I think knowing about, like, learning about astrology and learning about transits, right? So, meaning like the aspects that the planets moving in the sky are making with um, the positions that the planets, so other planets were occupying in your birth chart. So at the minute you were born. So learning about what these transits can mean, it could sort of mentally prepare you to deal with the challenge that you can see coming your way. You know. So
But
yeah.
also, I think that obviously, like, you can look at astrology from a sort of a personal point of view and from a psychological point of view, but you
Mm,
can also look at just outside influences that you have absolutely no control over. You know,
yeah.
it can just literally be what's going on in the world, like, which is huge to everybody at the moment. But think about that great big lineup that was in Capricorn. We're making
Mhm.
Capricorn sound awful in this podcast, but you know, there was this huge, great big pile up in Capricorn when COVID came that
Mm,
affected the whole world, you know, and I think some things will affect generations as well.
mm,
It's not always absolutely personal. Like, sometimes it really is something that you really are just kind of like affected by, and
yeah.
there's nothing you can do about that, but you can do stuff about your sort of personal place within that kind of thing. There's not
Right.
necessarily psychological, you know.
Mm,
It's very, very versatile,
it
astrology.
is.
It literally covers everything.
I love what
Yeah.
Jackie said in the chat. She said it's
Mm,
another tool in your belt for self-improvement and planning.
it
Yeah,
is
yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
But you know, I think Mandy, the point you're bringing is really, really important because it leads us to, it's sort of, I feel like it leads us to really at least try to come up with a kind of a philosophy for astrology, for how it works, why it works, you know, um, because things can't be both under our control and not at the same time, I feel. I mean, um, and what's interesting is that if you read, okay, so if you go back to the ancient types of astrology, there's just faith that they treat the planets as gods and they give them the power to be whimsical and to kind of play chess with human lives. So there's not really much of a, let's say, not much of a philosophy needed, right? But with like with more modern schools like evolutionary astrology, so you will learn, for example, that even on a collective level, there is a a certain degree of I don't want to say, let's say maybe, yeah, a certain degree of responsibility, a certain degree of agency in dealing with what seem to be kind of non-negotiable catastrophes. And the reason is that um, the types of the types of difficulties you find yourself in, and the way you find yourself automatically um, kind of processing them, understanding them, interpreting them, and then responding to them. All of that will be will depend on the level of evolution that your soul in this lifetime has reached, right? So I just read the better part of a book by one of the founders of evolutionary astrology. His name is Jeffrey Wolf Green, and it's called Pluto: The Evolutionary Journey of the Soul. And he has an interesting theory, which is that 75% of the human population is in what he calls the herd state of evolution. You know, no, it's not a flattering term, but basically it means that it's like they tend to kind of follow consensus opinion and not let their minds not take responsibility for their own mental abilities and their own capacity to form their own judgments, basically, right? Um, and then, so if you go with that, then you can sort of you could argue that people, when they act like um, groups, rather more than they do as individuals, then they become more vulnerable to manipulation, and by the same token, they become more complicit in manipulation and in the manipulative power structures that get built up over these different types of manipulation and exploitation. So yeah, it's a really philosophical topic. It's not something I think we can cover in one podcast. But yeah, it's definitely something that I feel like more we should talk about more and more, in the whole like astrological community. Yeah.
Well, personally, I mean, that's really interesting. Yeah, definitely a sort of a whole topic within itself. But I use it for, I would say, trying to sort of make people or help people to feel better if they're going through a bad time. I look at when that energy is going to change, which kind of seems to be very much appreciated. People like to have a date in their diary, a date and a time.
Yeah.
Things will start to lift on such and such a date, and you can
Mm,
be quite specific about it. It's not that difficult to kind of work that out. And you work it out like for the individual. So I use that quite a lot. I also use electional astrology a lot, where if someone's got a plan or a goal, that we learned how to give them a specific date and time that would be the most kind of you know positive time for them to launch their project, or to send
mm,
that email where they're more than likely to get a favorable result. So why do
right.
it at a random time when there's a time when that
Yeah.
where there's a better chance of success? I
And
use
Hmm.
that a lot. Yeah,
on
go on,
that
Karen.
note too, with the electional astrology, say I've got to do something and I don't have time to wait until that best time for me to do it comes up. You'd be able to tell me what challenges I will face,
Yeah,
what I'd be knocking my head against and
yeah,
getting nowhere with, or what I would be better off doing.
yeah.
You even if I didn't have time for that perfection, you would be able to help me face those challenges. I
Absolutely. Yeah.
love that.
And even down to, even if you can't do it at the kind of like the recommended time, like I say, if you have to do it on that day, it would be better to do it at 10 in the morning than 2 in the afternoon. There'd be some reason why, you know, uh, usually there's a little bit of flexibility. On the other hand, sometimes people are doing something on a certain day at a certain time, and they want to know how it's going to go. So we can just look at what it is, what they're going to expect on that day at that time, doing that particular thing. We can give an honest kind of like idea of how the energies are flowing towards them on that day at that time, and hope that it's going to be not too bad, but you never know. So you can look at it from all different points of view. Then you've got the other thing, which is kind of like the synastry, where you compare one person's chart to another person's chart. You look at the strengths and the weaknesses. Very helpful. It's such a tool. It really, really is. And the fact that we combine it with our tarot readings as well, where we double endorse things, or fill in gaps one to the other, it's amazing. It
I
really is amazing.
love that synastry almost as much as I love the natal charts. And I've had two really big readings where it's been couples and they're just at each other's throats, and being able to see what they agree on, where they disagree, how they're pushing each other's buttons and pissing each other off, that awareness. Oh, I didn't realize that was pissing you off, or oh yeah, I do that on purpose. That both times I've done that, there have been a knockdown, drag out fight. But at the end of it, they call me a month later saying, yeah, we started to fight again. And then we say, whoa, wait, what did she say? And then they
Yeah.
talk. So being able to see where they're different people, you don't think the same way I do. So why do I keep pounding into your head how you should be doing it, type of thing?
Right.
Yeah. So I really love this industry.
Mm. Yeah.
Compromise. It's all about compromise.
I
it's
I think before you have looked at astrology, though, there is this massive misconception, isn't it, with just like the sun signs and the horoscopes in the magazines, and that's it. And it's like, well,
absolutely.
how could everybody that's an Aquarius all have the same sort of thing? And obviously, they, you know, this is it's just doing it such a disservice, really. I think those little daily horoscopes, but they're a bit of fun, aren't they?
They are fun, but
And then
they
you get
really
people
give
like,
us a bad name.
I've even got friends that would say something like, "Oh my God, I would never date an Aries," or that, yeah, I'm just using that as an example. And obviously that, you know, maybe they're perhaps a Cancer or something. Do you know what I mean? But there's far more to it than just that, because it might be everything else apart from the fact that that person, the sun was in Aries when they were born. Everything else about that person might be perfect for you, you know?
Yeah,
You may have some really great connections in areas of your life where it actually matters, you know, and
right.
it's so narrow-minded to see it all as just the sun signs.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, but it's just like, it, I think of it like I sort of compare it to really mainstream media. You know, it's just like easier to sell reality and sound bites, right? Um,
I love that.
and also it's, actually the thing is like whenever you have like a very well developed commercial culture, that doesn't really go well with an intellectual culture, you know? Um, because the intellectual culture is all about kind of taking things slowly and not looking at their kind of quick, kind of you know, the ability to turn them quickly, to turn information quickly into profit. You know, it's a more philosophical approach to knowledge. It's about sitting with it, really letting it kind of, grow roots in you, and really trying to understand it and absorb it into your system. You know, and unfortunately, I think so. A lot of people, they like the idea because it has a magical feel to it. They like the idea that their personalities, their likes and their dislikes, their habits, they might have a kind of, let's say, a connection or even an anchor going up all the way from the earth to these really, really far constellations, makes them feel like part of something big and magical and mystical. But I think most people, because they learn astrology from these mainstream pop sources, they don't really then in the end they don't understand like how much how much knowledge and how much effort is needed to understand what the connections are between the microcosm and the macrocosm, the you here incarnated in this body, and then let's say the map of the sky at the time in which you were born, right? So the energies, like the cosmic energies that were flowing into you at the time you were born. Like that takes time to understand, And I think that's where, as astrologers, like we can really help people because then we can take the burden of the time and the research. It's a lifetime. It's a lifetime commitment, really, to be like a full-time astrologer. It really is.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that is the value of a true astrologer. Not someone who um, doesn't believe in oversimplifying things, and also someone who doesn't believe in, let's say, painting a doom and gloom picture of things or in sugarcoating real challenges either, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so,
And
yeah.
understanding the complexity of
Mm,
every single person.
mm-hmm,
Uh,
exactly. Mm-hmm.
How much of it, in your opinion, would you say is working with your intuition? Like the tarot
Mm,
is very intuitive, and astrology is quite systematic in a way. But I
yeah,
still think intuition comes into it.
I love that question so much. And it's a kind of topic that I've been kind of getting into accidentally, like with other students in the program I'm in now and with the teacher. So it turns out, and even in the books that I've been reading, actually, like by advanced astrologers. So basically, it seems that after a certain level or time, like where you build experience with the planets and all the planet sign house combos and even the aspects, you start gaining a level of intuitive understanding. You can look at a chart and then suddenly the symbols will come alive and start speaking to you because you've been working with them for such a long time. So it's like you gain a feel
Yeah.
for what they mean, you know? And yeah, I think it can work on intuition, but yeah, it's probably a more complex type of intuition,
It was
you know?
really interesting. I did a reading for a lady yesterday, and
Mm,
um, she had it was a situation with her sister, and basically what I think it was their moons. I was looking at their moons, and they were absolutely. I don't want to kind of use technical terms here, but 150 degrees. That
yes.
that.
Oh, yeah.
But they
You
had
know
no.
that? Queen
Yeah,
cuts.
Clink, clunk, clink,
but they
clunk.
basically they didn't get each other. They just didn't get each other. It was as simple as that. And what I was wanting to do, like prior to, I wanted to see because she was going to sort of approach her sister about something, and I was trying to find a moon day, when it would be the kind of like most compatible day when the energies would kind of be, aligned. And it was like, well, there isn't one, right? There just isn't, because if I find a day when her moon is very kind of like well aligned with the moon in the sky, that's not gonna work for her sister, and vice versa. And in the
Yeah.
end, I thought I need to use my intuition here. I
Mhm.
absolutely have to use my intuition how to solve this problem. And I can't remember exactly what it was. I might have got this the wrong way round. But I think what I went for was a very compatible moon day for her. And when the moon in the sky would actually kind of align with the sisters, it was either with the sisters Venus or Jupiter in a positive way. So I couldn't quite get it to do what I wanted it to do, but I still felt I was aligning the moon with the beneficial planet for one of them, and it was moon to moon with the other. And I thought, that's about the best I'm going to achieve. And I said, that's the day you need to do it, right? Do you know what I'm saying? But that really bounced into intuition to solve that problem, because I think there is always a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
Hmm.
scientific version is not always going to, one and one is not always going to make two. So you might have to kind of use your intuition to find the best compromise. I think that would sum up how I worked with it. And I thought afterwards, I
Right.
felt quite good about that. I thought if I didn't have an intuition, I might have got stuck at this point. Do you see what
Mm,
I'm saying? So
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it was
Mm,
kind of cool, really. And I believe there is a place for intuition in making astrological decisions on people's behalves. And that was just a very recent example.
I agree with you 100%. As long as whoever's using the intuition, like it has to be an astrologer who knows the science before they make those intuitive leaps.
mm.
If you understand and know the science, you can't just like with tarot go off into the ether. You have to still know the science, and then your intuition can work.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm of the same mind. Exactly. Hmm. And the other thing is like I think intuition helps maybe in a different way in the sense that Okay, so like we were just saying, all of us are very, very different. We're just like made up in very individual ways, right? And I think part of that then ends up in us being attracted to different types of astrology, even for reasons that we don't understand, you know?
Right.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it comes like from a gut kind of, let's say, um, knowledge, right? A knowledge that, it hasn't risen to the conscious level, but it's still a gut knowledge. And that is really helpful. I feel like that is an intuitive guide for what you should learn, what type of astrology you should learn. And
Yes.
it's actually, maybe you can say it's essential, even because there are so many different schools of astrology, so many different teachings, many of them completely clashing.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's very easy to get lost in the sea with 1,000 waves that kind of
That
just
doesn't
passing
help,
in
does
different
it? All
directions. No,
the different,
no, it really,
yeah,
yeah,
traditions.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It really, I mean, I'm not saying that the field is chaos, but it's just, it really can really easily be overwhelming. So I feel like if you feel called to astrology, you will probably be called to the practice of a certain type of astrology that it sort of attracts you on a gut level, you know? And so that whole part of the process is an intuitive one,
Yeah, and
you know?
also I think it's who you're attracted to. Because
Mhm,
if you become attracted to a certain teacher and
mhm.
they believe in a certain type of thing, but that you are just like a sponge for whatever this kind of personality is saying to you, you're going to go with that, aren't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Oh yeah.
unless this teacher sort of lets you down in some way, or you start to kind of question what they're saying, I just feel if it's good enough for them to do whole sign houses, then it's good enough for me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's a huge thing in the
Yeah,
astrological world, which house is right. And I
yeah,
had a article by Steven Forrest on that. I love that article. I wish I had saved it. I got it in my email. I'll look for it. But it was talking about how the individual houses, none of them are really wrong. It's I'm paraphrasing here. It's what works best for the way your brain works. It's much like all the different kinds of magic that appeal to different people because we are so vastly different. The house systems, like Placidus, just makes more sense to my brain. Whole
Mhm.
house makes sense to Mandy. Now, certain types of astrology, like horror, you have to, and I can't even say this word, you have to use Regiomontanus.
Regiomontanus. Yeah,
Yeah.
Regiomontanus.
that made our jaws drop, didn't it? That one.
So so when I'm doing a specific type, I'm going to use what that uses. Like when Mandy does it's your progressions where you have to use whole
Perfection,
house.
perfections.
Perfections that use whole house.
Yeah.
But knowing the different house systems helps. So I'm not just thrown for a loop. But for natal charts and synastry, I prefer Placidus. It makes sense to my brain.
Right. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, I'll
mm,
try to
Yeah.
find that article because it was just really, really well written.
Mm.
Way better than what I just said.
Let's
Yeah, no, if you find
let's
it, please,
open up
please share.
the discussion. I don't know whether any of our lovely Patreons have got any kind of things they would like to add, or or ask, or comment on. Anybody?
Yeah.
I'll say something because it's just fascinating. But for me, it's
Oh,
funny because I'm sitting here in my car and I watch you guys all the time. So I'm like, I was like, oh wait, I'm in this meeting. But it's I'm just like fascinated. But for me, like I love it because I do the astrology meetings on Friday with you guys because it adds to my tarot studies.
yes.
And it's just fun, and I've learned a lot with you guys by doing it. I use like the app, the Astro Gold, and one of the things that I was just doing as we were watching, I pulled up my chart and the transit, and I was like, this is something I could do. Is just like you could use it as part of your meditation thing. Like look at the current transit, what's going on. Go to the little places in there that say like, sun's quinquax or something is something else, And I know you like that word, Mandy,
Yes.
but So so like it's kind of like, it was kind of neat to see like what's going on at planetary at this moment and how is it affecting me where I'm at right now. But yeah, I love it. I think it's great that you guys are doing it. It's fun. I learn a lot, and it does support my tarot reading.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you,
Oh,
Kevin.
that's great.
Thank you so much. Anybody else got any comment?
I love astrology because I'm always looking forward to the good days ahead,
Yes.
as Monday mentioned. But I love the idea about getting to know people better by the chart. So tomorrow I'm going to ask my boss what time you've been born. By the way, what time?
It really
just
helps
accidentally.
you. You know, like things that they do that you're just like, why do you do this? Oh, okay, I get it. That's you just
Yeah.
drawn that
So-
way. But if you still can't tolerate them, and I'll probably have to cut this out. If you still can't tolerate someone at all, even if you understand them, then you look at their chart on how to really piss them off and get them out of your life.
I love that.
That's hilarious.
Amazing.
Oh, so funny. Dean, have you got any comments or questions?
Yeah, sorry, there's lots of interruption. Yeah, this basically what I'm gathering, that I could learn astrology over the weekend and whatever, but it seems like you're like jazz musicians. You have to learn the scales and be boring classical studies. Sorry about this. I'm trying. So at what point, if I was to learn astrology and tarot and do a blitz course, and by the end of the weekend I'm an expert, at what point are you going to let me be in the jazz band? For yourself, I know you, Mandy, I know that without being rude, your maturity allows an instinct, oh, bloody things, an instinct, but at what point is one ready to do this?
I feel with astrology, because tonight's podcast is about astrology, I feel you sort of know within yourself whether you've kind of understood something, whether it's kind of like made sense, and it's like, I've got that. I actually do get that. I understand that. And therefore I could actually look that up, that particular thing, for another person and feel accurate about it. You sort of know within yourself whether you've learned something properly or whether you're still kind of flaky or shaky at it. And I feel if I didn't feel certain, I would rather say nothing.
And I know when I learned it was years that I would, Jackie's one of them, Jackie's here. Like, let me practice on you so you can tell me if I'm on the mark or off the mark.
Yeah.
Or, you know, Jackie was one of the people I read for. She helped me practice. You know, so if you're unsure, just get someone you trust to come in and say, "Oh wow, Sharon, you suck," or "Oh hey, that was really accurate."
I think bits of it you can understand quite immediately, bits of it, you know, and other bits of it can take years, you know, but certain things like, you know, perhaps kind of understanding the fixed energies or something, like knowing that Taurus is like fixed energy, Leo is fixed, and just understanding what fixed might mean to you. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then if you sort of met someone and you looked up their date of birth and oh, lo and behold, they're a Taurus, and you think, well, now I understand the sort of stubborn side of them. You could get that straight away,
Yeah.
maybe. You
Jackie's
know?
got her hand up.
Yeah.
So I have a friend that I kind of have a cursory knowledge of astrology, but not great. But I have a friend that's been studying it, and she did something I thought was interesting, and I thought I would share the idea for people that want to practice. She came up with a concept, and she chose apologizing, and she said, what I'm trying to do is ask people with different moons how they want to be apologized to
Oh.
and like
Mhm.
on either side of it, or how they would apologize to someone else. Like, when would you recognize that you needed to apologize? How long would it take you to do it? And how would you do it? And then the reverse. And then she would look at the moon of that person and compare it to like the different, explanations that are given for that, just to kind of make it more like applicable and concrete.
I
I
like
love
Oh,
that.
that's
that.
very
I like that.
interesting. Wow,
And
very
I've got
creative.
one little book. It's got all kinds of tidbits about astrology. It's one of my favorite ones. But one of the tidbits it has is if you're this particular moon, what would you hoard? Like,
Mm.
what kind of hoarder would you
Hoard-
be?
I love that. So in a sense, I love what you're both saying. You could do that with every planet, couldn't you? You could think of a sort of, if you were Mars, right? How would you do your shopping or whatever?
Oh, God. Elbows out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's the idea. That was
Pushing
just
in the
example.
queue.
I love that, Jackie.
But that is great, Jackie. That is great. Maybe we should do that in our study group.
I think that would be fun.
How about that, guys?
Yes.
Friday night.
Yeah, I'm in.
Love it.
Who's
I'm
in?
in as well. Yeah.
You're in. Kevin?
Yep, I am.
Dean?
Jackie?
You wanna come along on Friday night?
As long as I remember, I'll be there.
Well, we can just, again, we could be intuitive about it. We could say what we feel it could be, based on the different moons and learn a bit about the moons in the process.
Or even something like in reverse, like you give how you would want to apologize, whatever, and
Yes.
someone could
I
guess
think
what
that would
sign
apply
that is.
with all the planets, wouldn't it? It would apply both ways.
Mhm.
It's like,
Absolutely.
how do you lose your temper, and how do you react when someone else loses their temper with you or whatever? So yeah, I think that's very interesting. I really like that a lot. So thank you all very much for coming. I hope people found that interesting. I mean, I love these chats. It's just wherever it may go. And yeah, we'll pick up on that Jackie Friday. So hopefully you'll come along, because we're gonna, and if you can find the list, that's great, bring it. But if not, we'll decide for ourselves what we think.
All right.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, sounds good. So thank you very much. We all do readings. We do astrology readings, tarot readings, classes, all of that stuff. So yeah, head on over to the Pomegranate Grove.
Private lessons.
And lessons, yes. Talking of which, Kevin, I will see you tomorrow.
Yes.
And yeah, and we'll see you all next time. Oh, hang on, haven't I got to give an important message? Isn't it to say about the Patreon and the Magic Cottage is going to be on, it's the 2nd of January, isn't it, the next one? Yeah, it's going to be on Sunday the 2nd of January from 7 to 9 p.m. Is it, or is it 8 to 10? No, I think it's 7 to 9 p.m. UK time. It's the Magic Storytellers Cottage. The only requirement is that you bring a deck of tarot cards, any deck of tarot cards, and anything can happen in that cottage. I know Kevin and Pavlina have both been attendees. I don't know if you've got any kind of comments that you'd like to.
Oh my God, it was amazing last cottage. I've learned so much. Brilliant. Love it.
Yes. So
It actually really helped me a lot for the rest of my year with my goals. Cassidy, it was really inspirational.
Yeah, it was.
well, it's happening again, and it will be obviously a New Year's version of the Magic Cottage. It's a tarot-based event. It's very, very interactive. It's on Sunday, the 2nd of January, as I say, 7 to 9 UK time. It's £5 to get in, unless you are a Patreon member, in which case it's included in your monthly Patreon, which is a mere £12. And if anybody kind of wants to treat themselves to become a Patreon for 2022, you can come along to all the podcasts if you wish. And there are 4 live events a month as well, including the Magic Cottage and 3 others. So, cheap at half the price. So anyway, it's all there on the Pomegranate Grove website. See you soon, and bye for now. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for engaging with us. Please like, subscribe and share. To book a personal, in-depth reading and to learn more about our incredible courses in tarot and astrology, please visit our website www.thepomegranate.grove.com.